Hello and welcome to this video. Now in this video we're going to talk about something I get asked on a regular basis, and that is which category to use. Now I'm sure we've all been there. We've been doing our bookkeeping on our QuickBooks Online and we've realised that we don't know what category to use in what circumstance. Well, this is going to be a definitive guide to what category to use, why, and why it's also important. Stay tuned. Hello, my name is Aaron Patrick. I am a chartered accountant, a certified UK trainer with a fancy new logo, that QuickBooks chap on the internet, and also head of account here at Boffix. Now today's video is straightforward enough. Which category to use and why? It's a question that gets asked so many times and it's really important. And I completely understand why. I understand why you guys will find it troubling at times to which category to use. Well, first and foremost, may I just tell you that actually putting it to the right category isn't as important as it may seem. See, one major tip I'll always tell people is the most important person to decide what category that is going to be you. As long as you understand what that cost is relating to, as long as you understand what that income is relating to, then that's the most important person who will ever need to know. And if you need to put a different category for your mobile costs and a different category for your landline costs, then please, by all means, do that. Make it so that when you run reports, when you look at your analytics of your business, that you are making sense and you are understanding the key elements that's right for you and your business. At the end of the day, the most important person who will ever read those results and look at the actual progress your business is making is you. So if you're making sense of what those categories are, then we're already on to a winner. But let's have a look at some actual examples and let's have a look and see if we can understand what it actually means to put in something into a category. Let's go. Okay, so here's a typical example of when a category is important. You see, I'm jumping into my banking section. I'm going through and I have one transaction to clear, BG Services. Okay, let's have a look at that in a little bit more detail. Oh yeah, British Gas Services. That's me paying for heat and light, isn't it? Well, QuickBooks itself has tried to categorise this as telephone, more on that in a minute, and we spent £29.58 on the 15th of 1st, 2021, so almost a year ago at this point. Now for this one, ignore the fact that the bank account's expired, that's absolutely fine. But why do we care about what category we're going to put this to? Well, you see, what category it puts to is determined when you run a report in QuickBooks Online whereabouts that category or that transaction is going to occur. Also, if you're using QuickBooks Online to prepare your tax returns, it's going to determine whereabouts in your tax return that's going to be. So let's see some examples of that. Because if I jump into taxes and income tax on QuickBooks Online, I jump into my tax year and pray got it, and I look at how my expense has been made under business expenses, then notice there's all these different categories down here and different amount of numbers approaching depending on how much I've assigned to each of those individual categories. Well, that is actually really, really important because that's going to determine on my tax return how my expenses are going to be shown. And HMRC do have a tendency to keep an eye on those numbers. They can run analytics, they can look at them in detail, and it gives them an opportunity to maybe look at yours in more detail or not. For example, if you have lots and lots and lots of cars in repairs and renewals just here, they may want to come and look at you and speak to you because they may want to make sure that all of those are legitimate repairs and they're not what we would call capital items. So getting them right from a tax return point of view is really, really important. But at the same time, it's not the end of the world, say, if you've got a couple of items maybe in a different category than what you would say is correct. You see, again, this is important for you. You need to be able to understand what these costs are. The fact that I've got here £1,500 in my wages and salaries there, I need to be confident that they are legitimate wages and salaries. Have I PAYE'd them? Have I put them on a payroll? Have I paid CIS to them if they're CIS and subcontractor? Those sort of things I should be able to answer because I've categorised them as wages and cash. The other time where it's really important, if I jump into my reports, is again looking at my analytical reviews. So if I look at the last 365 days and I put months there and press run report, I want to be making sure that all of these costs and everything that are showing here make sense to me, because I'm the one who's going to be analysing them. So I can see here my insurance costs has suddenly jumped up. Is there a reason why there's an extra £1,500? Is that right? I need to go and check that out. But having them split into all these different categories gives me that opportunity to understand and gives me that opportunity to make sure that everything's okay. So when you're putting a category, you're basically saying on a report like your profit and loss, whereabouts I want that cost to apply. And again, if I need to add extra ones there, then that's completely right and that's completely fair, because it's about me making sure that I can understand it. When you are adding a category though, there is one very, very important distinction that you need to make sure. Notice how all the items here are what we call our income or our expenses categories. And there's also cost of sales as well. Now, these are what we would call our profit and loss items. So these are items that basically it's about what income you received, what expenses you've had, and at the very bottom, what profit you received. If I went over and ran a report called a balance sheet though, and I looked at these categories here, these are completely separate to that profit and loss item. And these categories relate to basically transactions that don't interact necessarily with my profit and loss account. So they're not my typical buying an item and selling an item or providing a service and paying for costs related to that service, but they're related to transactions which are all about my balance sheet. And in a real crude way, your balance sheet is basically how you're funding your profit and loss exercises. So if you think about it, your bank is the easiest balance sheet item to ever understand, because every time you buy or sell an item into your profit and loss account, majority of the time, unless it's cash, it's going to relate to that bank account. So as you sell more services or sell more goods, you want that bank account to go up. And as you pay for more transactions, you can expect that bank account to go down. All in all though, it should appear on your balance sheet, and that balance sheet should be how much money is in that bank account at any given time. Other really useful items on your balance sheet are going to be things like if you're VAT registered, your VAT control account, how much VAT you've gathered, how much VAT you've handed over to HMRC. And your balance sheet is basically not just how much money that you have already, but also liabilities that can affect that balance. So if you've got a VAT return you've got to pay in 3 months' time, or a tax bill you've got to pay in a few months' time, then you want to show that on your balance sheet, because at some point that's going to affect that cash balance that you've got in your bank account. Now the balance sheet is a quite complex area, and one of those areas where people do struggle the most in terms of getting to understand exactly its reason in. But really, for the majority of your transactions, you're going to want them to be in the profit and loss account, unless they're personal items. And it's only really those personal items that you're going to get worried about. Now, there's one other aspect that always goes into the balance sheet, and that's what we call capital items. So basically, if you've paid for something that's on a much more grander scale that's going to last multiple years, but again, it's not the end of the world if you put it to P&L account, especially if you've got an accountant working for you. Most of the time, for most people I speak to, they have that accountant who's going to look after their end results. So really, your job is just to make it really easy for that accountant to understand what's going on in your business. If you were going to put a capital item within a separate category in your profit and loss account, because you want to know that you've paid for it and it's going to reduce your income you've made that year, then that's absolutely fine. And if anything, that's probably going to be the best way to do it, because that means that you're going to understand it, you're going to see it, and it's going to make more sense to you in your management figures. But just be aware that when the client takes over and produces your year-end accounts, they're going to be moving that around quite a lot. Now, where do your categories sit? Well, if I go to accounting and chart of accountants, your chart of account is basically all your different categories. And if we go through this list here, we can see all the categories that we've been using within this particular client. And if I wanted to create a new category, I press this new button at the top. And from here, I choose the account type. Now, when we're looking at account type, there's only really going to be 3 of those that are going to affect you and the ones I want you to concentrate on. The first one is cash at bank in hand. That's when you need a new form of making payments for something. So if you need a new bank account, a new credit card to add, anything like that, I would suggest just using cash at bank in hand. Keep it really simple on yourself. If you want to put a new income stream in and you want to show new income, use the income code just here. and then use expense for anything expense related. Now for some of you out there will be a fourth one, that's going to be cost of sales. If you have a business where you're going to have costs that are directly attributable to your income. So for example, if you sell actual physical items in your store and you want to show in your cost of sales, you actually purchasing those costs, then they should go against costs. That's when cost of sales is going to be important to you, because basically cost of sales should be all of the costs that are associated with every time that you've made an expense that relates directly to an income. And in theory, the way it should be is if you made no sales in a particular year, you should have zero cost of sales. If you made lots of sales in the year, you should have a lot more cost of sales. Cost of sales should always be dependent on how many sales you make, whereas your other expenses, they're what we call admin expenses, and it doesn't matter typically how many sales you make, you've always got to incur those costs, so rent, things like that. So let's tackle trying to actually complete a transaction. First of all, let's go back to this transaction. Remember, BG Services, so British Gas Services. So to me, that's definitely going to be heat and light, something like those lines. We've spent £29.58, so we know it's going to be an expense, but QuickBooks has categorized this as telephone. Now, one of the most important things to remember here is that just because QuickBooks says it's telephone doesn't mean we're going to leave it as telephone. You see, when you press this button here, this add button, what you're effectively saying is you're saying that you agree that everything on that line is correct. Well, at this point, ignore VAT for this particular exercise, but we're not sure if that VAT is correct here. We're definitely not confident that telephone's right, so we have no right to press that add button. In this situation, we need to change the category to what's best suited. So just as a reminder of how to change it, you go into category over here and start typing heat and light. That means I'm now selecting light and heat, or heat and light, from my category that I want. Once I've applied the VAT correctly, again, don't worry about VAT, and press add. That will now appear, if I was to run my profit and loss account, that will appear as light and heat for that particular month. And that's where categories come in. We're telling QuickBooks what to do with them. So look at some more examples. When we're looking at sales, we've got to be very careful. If they are legitimate sales, be careful that you've not already accounted for them as income, as an invoice. If you've already put them in as an invoice, then you don't want to be adding a brand new one, because that'll double count it. You want to be matching against the transaction as applicable. And we've done loads of videos on that one. If they are sales though, make sure that you've got a category that works for you. So in this case, I'm just going to leave them as sales, but if it was a new income stream that I wanted to kind of record against, I'd select what income stream they are. Example here, this one, a customer, this one, the invoice has been found, we're going to match against it, everyone's happy. Now to bring in some other income streams that you need to be careful of. Now these ones here, they're nothing to do with sales, so we mustn't be putting them against sales, because that's going to affect our actual overall profit and loss. In this case, we've got a bounce back loan, and we've also got some grants that's been come through from COVID. In these cases, I want to be including them on that balance sheet for the bounce back loan, because I don't want to include them as ever extra income. So for that one, really straightforward, I created a new one, but to do that, I'm going to call it NatWest Bounce Back Loan. And there, I actually chose cash at bank in hand just to make my life easier, but another option there could be current liabilities. But it's as simple as that to creating a brand new one. And as soon as I've added it, and as soon as I've accepted it, what I'm expecting is that that doesn't appear on my profit and loss account, because it's not an income that I've actually generated for the business. It's a loan that I'm going to pay back, so it makes sense it's on my balance sheet, because then when I make those repayments, again, they won't be an expense, they will be an item I will put onto my loan. Now there is more complications there regarding interest and having to account for that correctly, but as long as we get them into the right area, then you can go see my other video about interest and loans and deal with them accordingly. My next one here is that I want to put it to my grants. And when I'm going to put it against grants, use that opportunity to create a brand new transaction. But this time, I'm either going to go to income, or what I would probably use this as another one just below it, other income. That's going to keep it all separated, isn't it? From there, I can choose a detail type, like other miscellaneous income, put it against grants, and press save and close. That then means that when I add the transaction, I'm good to go. Now, one of the key areas on this one here is when QuickBooks comes up with uncategorized expense. That is definitely the only situation where you should never post it to, because uncategorized expense means you don't know what that cost is. At the end of the day, if you've paid for it, you should know at least what it relates to. And again, if you have to, create a category that makes sense to you. If you have to create a brand new category that is just designed for you, then do it. So I'm going to go to an expense. From expense, I'm going to choose a detail type, and I'm going to find and pigeonhole the best of my ability. Don't get too caught up about detail type, just pick something that makes sense to you. As long as it makes sense to you, it's justifiable. Once you've got it in there though, your new name, your new transaction will be there, and you'll be able to post that transaction as applicable. Be also very careful about transactions like this. HMRC. HMRC could be you paying for a lot of different things. VAT, PAYE, corporation, self-assessment. Any of those ones I've just mentioned could be what this cost relates to. So first of all, you need to do a bit of work, and sometimes you need to look at the bank detail to understand exactly what it is. So in this case, it's telling me it's VAT, but I might need to go and have a look at what I recently paid VAT for. I need to put that against that. So when I'm putting my category here, I have to be looking into this bank account detail and then putting it against the right one. In this case, it's VAT expense because it's my VAT, so I can press add. Finally, if you've got a rule just there, just be careful of that rule. Make sure you're happy. It's British Telecom, the rules put it against telephone. Confidence is there that that's right. Normally that's my accountant or someone else that's done that rule for me, so I can press add and I'm happy with it. The final transaction that comes up and can cause a lot of problems is when you have a personal transaction. Either you're moving money from your business bank account to your personal account, either you've paid for something personal via your business account by accident, or it was the only card that you had, or it's something that's not business related. So for example, if you're self-employed or you are doing a self-assessment and you're doing your own sole trader business, then when you pay your taxes, that's not a business expense, that's a personal expense. In any of those cases, what you want to be putting into is a director's loan or a drawings account. Now, both of those, director's loan, drawing, just depends on if you're a limited company, which is director's loan, or a sole trader, which is drawings. But honestly, you can interchange both of them on anything. Your accountant most of the time isn't going to complain at you for using drawings when you use director's loan, or director's loan when you're using drawings. They kind of mean the same thing. So figure out which one works for you. But what I would suggest is when you create that account, so I'm going to now create a director's loan / drawings account. I'm going to call it both because that way I can't get told off for my accountant. When I add it though, my bonus tip for you is to leave it as a cash at bank in hand. And again, technically this isn't a cash and bank in hand, and as fellow accountants out there, you're going to be screaming at this saying, no, stop, that's not right. But trust me, keeping your personal account, your director's loan, your drawings account as a cash and bank in hand makes your life so much easier. It means you can generate expenses, it means you can pay things off, it means you have that flexibility in QuickBooks Online to really utilize that account. So I can save and close, I can post that transaction directly there, and jobs are good. If I went to my dashboard, the beauty of having it there means there's my director's loan drawings account, just that one transaction in it there at the moment. But if I wanted to add a brand new expense, which was from my personal account, that means it drops down here and I can choose director's loan / drawings account. I can say that I went and I paid Amazon and I bought some new computer equipment, and that equipment cost me £1,000, and I can press save and close, add the transaction, and it goes there. So using it as a opportunity to show it as a bank account gives me my flexibility to do that. Also, if there was an expense that I had added to QuickBooks but I had only just realized that I paid it from my personal account, well, I can make payment, I can drop it down to that director's loan account drawing, and I can press save and close. Now I've paid off that account, so it's not showing as outstanding anymore. But again, if I go back to my dashboard, look at that account, I can see there it's showing as one of those transactions that I brought in. Makes my life so much easier. So again, your director's loan, your drawings account, put it as a cash in bank, and you're going to make yourself life easier. And there we have it, a quick rundown on categories, why they're important and everything else. And when you think about it, categories again make sense to you. So if you've got some telephone costs, put it to telephone. If you've got some motor costs, put it to motor. If you've got an outboard and a computer, put it to computer. Keep it simple, keep it straightforward, but make sure that it understands from you. Make sure that when you go and look at those reports and you can see what the report's there, that you can understand where those expenses are coming from. You can justify those expenses. You will be able to have an opportunity to understand where maybe your business is spending a little bit too much in a certain area or what's going on. Make those reports make sense to you by making categories that actually make sense to what you're doing. And there we have it. If you have any question whatsoever, drop them in below. Let me know what categories you start creating. One of the things that I am going to be setting up soon is I'm going to make a chart account that anyone out there can download and install. And it just means that you're going to have lots and lots and lots of different categories available, meaning that you're going to have kind of a standard set that's going to make your life easier going forward. If you want that sooner, drop a comment below and we'll make sure we get that out as soon as possible, and we'll make sure there's a video on it when it's out there. My name's been Aaron Patrick. Hopefully this video has been some use to you. Hopefully this means that you can start categorizing things with confidence and getting them into your QuickBooks Online as soon as possible. But that's the name of the game. The quicker you get it from your bank account and into QuickBooks Online, the more analytics, the more opportunities you're going to have to do things like cash flow planning, items like that, which is going to help you in your business. Again, if you need any more questions, don't forget to reach out to myself in the comments below or my friends over at Boffix. One of the experts will love to help you if you did reach out to them as well. We're also doing a similar video on their channel, so it might be worth to subscribe. And while you're subscribing, why not come and subscribe to this channel as well? Because if this video has helped you in any way, then why not give us the opportunity to help you a little bit more on your QuickBooks journey? This video revolves around people like yourself watching, enjoying, and getting the most out of QuickBooks Online. My name's been Aaron Patrick. It's been an absolute pleasure to do this video for you, and I'm sure I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now. I told him I can be a fighter if you want. I'll be there to catch you if you fall. I can make it brighter when it's dark, when it's dark. I told him I would do it all for you, and I know you do it for me too. I can be a fighter if you want, if you want. I can be a fighter. I can be a fighter if you want. I can be a fighter if you want. All the way that I feel, yeah, I know that it's real, cause I can get him out of my head. I don't care what we do, everything's feeling new. Even if we stay in bed, my heart is saying yeah, 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 yeah. You know I want him, nah, 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 nah. My heart is saying yeah, 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 yeah. Hello and thank you for watching that video. What you may not know is this channel that you've watched this video from is part of a wider group. That wider group is called Apple Core Productions, and the 3 channels that we have involved are as follows: Aaron Patrick the QuickBooks Chat, Boffix Tax Tip. Finally, we have Apple Core Live and Geeky. All the links and everything are down below in the description, but it really means a lot to us if you can go and give a like to the other channels as well.